Darn, I can't think of what I want my next video idea to be. Let's check my video idea list. Power levels and the like 3 things I forgot to cover earlier? Nah, too soon. Dragon Ball's incredibly inconsistent speed scaling? I've been too negative recently. Let's do something more positive. Oh, this one! Top 10 Dragon Ball fights! That sounds fun. This is the perfect excuse for me to glaze all of my favorite parts of Dragon Ball. Keep in mind, I'm only going to cover stuff from the Dragon Ball manga here. My main reason for that is, well, most stuff from Super GT or Daima just wouldn't make the list compared to the manga. But secondly, if people like this video, I can make a sequel out of them. Alright, so Dragon Ball has a pretty rich history of fantastic fights. There's a reason it's quoted as an inspiration for basically all of the most popular anime. So what makes a great shonen fight? Well, there's a lot that goes into it. And I feel like shonen fights tend to fall into one of 2 categories. The first being what I'd call the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure approach, where the fight is a battle of wits, with complicated abilities, where the fighters need to constantly outsmart each other in order to gain an edge. These tend to be almost self-contained stories inside of the greater plot. You'll find this a lot in shows like Bleach and Naruto. Now, on the other hand, we have what I'd like to call the One Piece approach, where the fight itself is less important, and the narrative around the fight is the focus, often being more about spectacle and emotional moments. Dragon Ball itself actually has a bit of both of these for its entire run, though I believe during the first half of the story, we got more Type 1 fights, like most of the fights at the Tenkaichi Budokai, while, as the story progressed, it started having way more Type 2 fights, like the fight with Frieza, where, while our characters are taking him on, tons of stuff is constantly happening in the background that eventually contributes to the fight. Both approaches have their own strengths and weaknesses. That being said, you can definitely have a bit of both in the same fight, but most tend to lean one way or the other. Let's start with some honorable mentions. All of these are fantastic moments, but for one reason or another, I eventually disqualified them. Starting with Goku and Vegeta's rematch. This fight has some great setup, but basically happens entirely off-screen. Then the fight ends up getting interrupted. Majin Buu vs Majin Vegeta. It's less of a fight and more of a one-sided beatdown. Vegeta never stood a chance. His sacrifice is certainly a top 10 moment, but not necessarily as a fight. Future Trunks vs Colt and Frieza. Just like the last one, this is a really cool and shocking part of the story, but I have a hard time even calling it a fight. Super Saiyan 3 Goku vs Buu. We could certainly call this one a fight, and it's a great moment, but it's very short and gets interrupted early on. Uraza vs the Algorithm. While it didn't make the list, if you want to help me with my own battle with the YouTube algorithm, then it would be a big help to me if you would subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified about all of my new videos. And finally, the Z Fighters vs Super Buu. This one nearly made number 10, but it's so weird that I ended up disqualifying it. It's similar to a lot of other squad fights where all of our heroes work together against a single villain, but unlike the others, this one is debatably 3 separate fights and not one. All 3 of these fights here happen back to back to back, but since everyone essentially takes their turn with no overlap, I don't feel right including it as one fight, and none of them would have made the list solo. So with that, we can get into the rankings. Starting with number 10, Goku vs Piccolo Daimo. Alright, first entry on the list. In a lot of ways, the Piccolo arc was our first deep dive into the type of storytelling Toriyama would master by Dragon Ball Z, with a much more serious villain that took all of our heroes working together to defeat. The story took a pretty drastic shift this arc. We go from our mostly lighthearted story to Piccolo and his minions exterminating the caste we've become so close with. We get to see Krillin, Master Roshi, Ten Shinhan, and even Goku himself get demolished by Piccolo. All of this is important setup to make Piccolo seem like an insurmountable threat, building to this big fight. As this fight happens early on in the series, this is a much more Type 1 shonen fight, where for the most part, this is just a 1v1 between Goku and Piccolo, where both of them are constantly struggling to gain an edge against each other. It has some great moments, as Goku basically busts out every tool at his disposal, from the power pole to the flying Nimbus, to a bending Kamehameha. He even unleashes the full potential of the Ozaru. This fight really feels like the culmination of everything Goku has gained along the journey. Number 9, Z Fighters vs Nappa. Speaking of the plot getting more dark and serious, this fight is about as dark as you can get. After a year of preparing for the Saiyan threat, our characters' training finally pay off, or so you might think. While we initially start out with Ten Shinhan easily dispatching a Cyberman, it's quickly contrasted by Yamcha letting his guard down and receiving a quick death. While Yamcha's death is memed into the sun now, back when this was being made, this would have been a seriously shocking moment for readers. This fight sort of marks Dragon Ball's transition from Type 1 Shonen to Type 2 Shonen, as we move away from the intense technical battles and lean more into the dread of our characters throwing everything they have at Nappa to no avail as he slowly picks off our fighters one by one. Every time we think, maybe they got him this time, only for him to quickly reappear unharmed. Not to mention, there's the looming threat that the other Saiyan seems to be even stronger. All of this is with the constant thought in the back of our minds that we just need to stay alive a little longer until Goku arrives. That thought resonates strongly as near the end of the fight, Goku is seconds away and things finally seem to be looking up until... And with that, there are no more Dragon Balls. As far as we know, all of the characters we have grown to love are gone forever. Goku finally arrives just in time to save Gohan, but at this point, what can even he do against Nappa? Number 8. Goku vs Ten Shinhan. Jumping back to happier times, we get into the finals of the 22nd Budokai Tenkaichi. All of Dragon Ball's tournament fights are a great time, but this one is certainly one of the best, as we've been building to this fight throughout the arc. At first, it seemed like Ten Shinhan had been set up as a villain, but through his fight with Master Roshi, the idea of fighting to better yourself over selfish gain shines through as Ten Shinhan goes through an arc of self-improvement as the fight progresses. This fight is absolutely chocked full of cool moments, like Goku's plan to counter the solar flare, or when Ten Shinhan literally grows extra arms, but Goku is just that much faster and beats him anyway. To what many might still consider to be the strongest solo technique in the series, the Kikoho, that obliterates the entire arena. To a final clash where Goku puts everything he has into a final gambit. Ultimately, both contestants are completely exhausted, and Goku ends up losing due to dumb luck, which ultimately plays into the themes of the arc, as winning isn't everything. Number 7. Goku and Piccolo vs Raditz. Let's jump back forward to the fight that kicked off the non-stop banger that is Dragon Ball Z. After the end of Dragon Ball, Raditz just shows up and recontextualizes everything, giving us a horrifying origin story for Goku and establishes himself as a conqueror of worlds. This sets up the team up between our main hero and villain, which is always shocking to see, and even together they're barely a match for Raditz. This fight introduces the Scouter, and despite all of the haters out there, power levels were an incredibly effective narrative tool for clearly conveying the gap between our characters, while also establishing our characters have the potential to momentarily boost their power levels during a strong attack, giving them a small chance for victory. This fight constantly has us at the edge of our seats as our boys struggle to take down this monster, with the combined effort of our two strongest characters, including some help from Goku's immensely talented son. At the cost of Goku's very life, they're able to take down Raditz. Truly an incredible fight to kick things off. Number 6. Goku vs Master Roshi. This one is a classic. There's something so special about this fight. The first arc of Dragon Ball was very different to what it would eventually become, while the second arc is where Toriyama really gains his footing as a shonen writer, and this fight is a climax of that arc. Master Roshi wants his students to get some fighting experience at the greatest fighting event in the world, but at the same time he doesn't want them to get cocky, so he signs himself up under a secret identity of Jackie Chun. We get so many wacky phases in this fight, from drunken boxing versus monkey style, to Goku and Roshi's after-image battle. The blend of Toriyama's action and comedy writing is what allows for such outlandish feats, like Master Roshi blowing up the moon, that is so outrageous it doubles around to being awesome. And after the dust clears, we get the final clash, where both fighters can't move and need to summon up the strength to declare themselves the winner, with victory just narrowly evading Goku. This fight ends up establishing what might be Dragon Ball's most prominent theme, that being the idea to constantly keep improving, as there's always someone out there better than you. Number 5. Goku vs Piccolo Jr. Of course, we've covered the 21st and the 22nd, so you must know the 23rd would find its way here as well. Now, despite the fact that Goku's fight with Piccolo Sr. really felt like the culmination of the story up to that point, it's not where it ended. we get one more arc to send off Dragon Ball's incredible run of tournament arcs, and this is the grand finale. No other solo fight is as long and as intense as this one. I would consider this fight to be the peak of Type 1 shonen fights in Dragon Ball. It goes through so many phases, from Goku's Super Kamehameha to Piccolo's giant form, that at first seems like trouble, but Goku turns around into a way for him to save Kami from within Piccolo's stomach. We get a Kamehameha from Goku's feet to Piccolo's homing attack that Goku turns on him. We see Goku tanking Piccolo's explosive wave, which leads into Goku's famous meteor combo. But as we start celebrating, Goku is shot through the chest, not being able to move a muscle. But despite that, Goku fights to the end, to his last drop of blood. Finally, after 3 tournaments with victory evading him at every turn, he's finally able to secure the W as the world's strongest. It's a fascinating part of the fight that Goku, despite everything, refuses any help, as he wants to win this on his own. It borders on stupidity, or at least irresponsibility, as Piccolo could do horrible things to the world. But perfect characters don't make great stories. So all of that, combined with his unshakable willpower, is a fantastic display of everything that makes up Son Goku in this fight to end off the first half of the story. Now, if you made it this far, you probably have a pretty good idea of what the top 4 will be, as there's a suspiciously equivalent number of sagas in Dragon Ball Z, and I for one don't think Dragon Ball Z ever once failed to stick the landing. Number 4, Z Fighters vs Vegeta. Following Nappa's slaughter of the Z Fighters, to everyone's shock, Goku arrives, and with the use of the Kaioken he makes quick work of him. But never one to be outdone, Vegeta kills his own partner, sending us into the main fight. The setup for this fight is fantastic. A big theme from this fight is the idea of hard work versus natural talent, as Vegeta is the strongest Saiyan and believes talent is everything, while Goku has built his entire life upon hard work. The Kaioken technique is the perfect embodiment of this, as despite Vegeta having a sizable power advantage, Goku can momentarily cause damage to himself in order to surpass him. So Goku literally has to push himself harder than Vegeta to keep up. This is the premise for this section of the fight, as they get into a brutal brawl, ending in a massive beam clash with the planet at stake. And despite Goku winning the clash, Vegeta isn't done, and considering how the Kaioken is causing self-harm, things are already looking bad. But on top of that, we get to see a return of the Ozaru. But unlike before, Vegeta is able to fully control that power. Despite all that, Goku has one last ace up his sleeve, the Spirit Bomb. For a second it seems like Goku might still have this, but Vegeta quickly finds him and shatters every bone in his body, which in turn causes the return of Gohan and Krillin, who try and sever Vegeta's tail, like they did for Goku in the past. But it was a fool's errand to think they could catch Vegeta off guard. My boy Yajirobe! But even then, Vegeta is still very much alive. That leads us into our last chance, as despite losing most of the energy, Goku still has a bit left from the Spirit Bomb, and with the help of literally the entire squad, they're able to land it. But once again, this man won't go down. This fight is truly brutal. Everyone is bloody and broken. Well, except for Yajirobe. In the end, things come down to a stroke of luck, as Gohan's tail has reappeared, resulting in Vegeta getting squashed by an Ozaru, finally putting him down. Just like most of Z, this fight is quite serious, but Yajirobe's inclusion allows it to retain some of that classic Dragon Ball charm that was sort of lost for most of Dragon Ball Z. And we once again get an interesting Goku moment, as he somewhat foolishly wants to spare Vegeta. Number 3, Goku and Vegeta vs Kid Buu. Well, time for the finale of Dragon Ball. So, to start things out, the second Kid Buu enters the chat, he wants the smoke. He instantly bombs the planet with our guys barely escaping, which if you think about it, Buu dodges a massive bullet here since he kills the extremely powerful Gohan while he's asleep. Goku and Vegeta decide not to fuse, as it's clearly and directly stated that Kid Buu is weaker than Super Buu. So, Goku thinks he can handle it solo. Goku and Kid Buu clash, and that initiates the conclusion to Vegeta's character, as he thinks about how he can never seem to keep up with Son Goku. This scene is a great narrative tool to explain to us the audience why Goku is the best, as it's sort of a way of tying the overarching themes of the entire series together, from the first tournament, back when Roshi instilled the lesson in Goku to always keep pushing himself, and now at the very end. Goku is the spitting image of that belief. But despite that, Goku can't seal the deal, and he doesn't have enough stamina to take out Buu with his regeneration, We get a pretty great last stand from a clearly outmatched Vegeta, and we even get the return of the original Fat Buu thanks to Mr. Satan. This affords some extra time to our newly enlightened Vegeta to come up with a plan to have the people of Earth pool their energy together for one last Spirit Bomb. It's such a perfect ending to our story that in the final moments, everyone we've met along the journey is pitching in for the final attack, and we get to see lots of characters for the first time in years. But of course, rightfully so, it would be stupid to assume that the entire population of a planet would just do whatever you ask. And that's where the genius decision to have Mr. Satan here comes in, as he is the people's champion, and it only takes the sound of his voice to get the entire population on their side. There's something so special about the comedy of Dragon Ball Z. A lot of writers feel like you need to commit to comedy or serious drama, but both flow so naturally in this entire fight. We go from Vegeta's passionate speech to Goku's noticeably goofy fight with Buu, leading into him saying that he isn't strong enough, to Mr. Satan the Fool, who took credit for killing Cell, ultimately becoming the true hero of Earth. I feel like this ability to seamlessly mix genuine storytelling with comedy is rarely duplicated. I really believe that during Dragon Ball Z, Akira Toriyama was at his peak. Now, even after all of that, Kid Buu is still pushing the bomb back, but in the last minute we're reminded there's still one more wish, and with that Goku's power is restored, enabling him to finish off Buu. Just like Goku, I really appreciate Kid Buu here. Super Buu has been fighting tooth and nail this entire arc, and now, stripped of his intelligence, Buu is returned to his primal form. This guy just wants to throw hands and destroy. Like a predator, he plays with his food. He does a great job bouncing off our cast, but he also knows how to get serious. A good villain really does matter, and it feels like this sort of thing is lacking in more recent projects. Speaking of good villains, number 2. Z-Fighters vs. Frieza. I'm sure some people will argue that this should count as several different fights, but I define it as a single fight because once it starts, Frieza basically fights non-stop until the end. That obviously makes this the longest fight on the list by far, and the entire arc is basically set up for this fight. Basically right at the start of this arc, we learn what a menace Frieza is, as we see him mercilessly slaughter an entire village with a smile on his face. We get some fantastic mileage out of power levels this arc, as in contrast to the almighty Vegeta from last arc at 18,000, Frieza sits at a staggering 530,000. It's just like King Kai says, don't mess with Frieza. Finally, we shift into the 2-volume long fight. I won't get into this first half too deeply, as all of it echoes the same thing. Someone steps up to take on Frieza, and we think maybe they can win, only for that idea to get completely squashed in the face of Frieza's overwhelming power. And his several transformations keep the fight fresh until Goku arrives. And you think, surely things will change now, but no. We learn Goku isn't even stronger than half of Frieza's power with a Kaioken times 20, and not even a gigantic Spirit Bomb could do the job, echoing the words of King Kai, don't mess with Frieza. But you know what comes next. Frieza starts picking our guys off, and that pushes Goku into ascending into the mighty Super Saiyan. There is so much that goes into making this form amazing, from the foreshadowing to Goku's acceptance of his heritage, to the idea that Frieza is sort of a victim of a self-fulfilling prophecy here. But all of that would take too long to get into. This form allows Goku to dominate the fight, and that gets us into the genius plan from King Kai and the Grand Elder to use the Dragon Balls in the background to save everyone. After that, we get the conclusion, as Frieza is done, and his power is dropping. Goku tries to give him an out, but his hubris won't allow it. Just like how he sort of brought the Super Saiyan upon himself, he also ends up defeating himself as well. This fight has so many amazing character moments for Goku, from his refusal to be teleported away, to his somewhat irresponsible decision to let Frieza power up, to his final desire to spare even the worst villain in the universe. A lot of people complain about all of Goku's decisions here, but people don't really know what they want. We complain just as much, if not more, about characters who are written to be perfect. I, for one, love Son Goku for all of his flaws. To be completely honest, I originally had that one at number 4, but I guess I forgot how great it was, because after revisiting it, I had to bump it up to 2. And finally, number 1, Gohan vs. Cell. Don't act surprised, you all know this one is the best. I believe it was recently confirmed in an interview that Toriyama wanted to end the series here, but honestly, most of us already knew that for years. It's kind of obvious. This fight really feels like it's written to be the conclusion of Dragon Ball Z. Son Gohan has basically been our main character throughout Z, and while Goku is off being busy training and such for most of the plot, it's really Gohan who we follow throughout the story, watching him constantly struggle against the odds. All throughout, we get many examples of Gohan's immense potential, and no one sees it as clearly as his father, Son Goku, who is eerily calm approaching the Cell games. However, as the arc progresses, Goku tries to pass on the torch to his son, but he puts too much on his shoulders, and the weight of responsibility is too much to bear. This leads into Cell trying to give Gohan an extra push, tormenting his friends, just piling more and more on top of Gohan. But surprisingly, the one who finally helps Gohan out of the despair is Android 16, who actually has a lot in common with Gohan. He was built to destroy, but loves nature and the world around him, and it's the words of 16 about protecting the things he cares about that unleashes the power within. Goku and Vegeta spend a lot of time this arc talking about ascending above the Super Saiyan state, but I doubt anyone would have guessed at the time that Gohan, who wasn't even a normal Super Saiyan, would be the one to achieve it. He goes on to obliterate the Cell Juniors that we had just seen fighting on par with Vegeta, and you expect this to transition into the big final fight with Cell, but well, I'm not sure you can even call this a fight. There's something so satisfying about a cocky character finally getting the beatdown they deserve. But unfortunately, it seems like the new form has affected Gohan in more ways than just his power. Gohan is only an 11-year-old kid, and his father finally understands that, stepping in to make up for his mistake. Which, even just that would have been an amazing ending, but as you know, it's not quite over yet. Cell returns stronger than ever, and to make matters worse, due to Vegeta's outburst, Gohan is down an arm. With that, hope on Earth is lost. However, Gohan hears the echoes of someone who will never give up, even in death. That of course being Son Goku, who still believes in his son. Empowered by the words of his father, Gohan fires back. Everything about this clash, from the swelling ball of energy to how painful every panel of Gohan looks, sells this as the true climax. And finally, to end the stalemate, Vegeta assists by staggering Cell, which considering who Vegeta was around this time, is shocking, this being the first real step towards his future development, giving Gohan an opportunity to throw everything he has into Cell. The combination of all the foreshadowing, plus all of the subplots through the arc converging into this one fight, results in the best fight in the series. I've been seeing people talk about how Dragon Ball Daima really brought the series back to its roots, but I'm not so sure they're right. While Dragon Ball always balanced dramatic action with comedy, it definitely feels like Daima tuned up the comedy a tad too much. It feels like a level of seriousness is missing. Even throughout original Dragon Ball, the antagonists had goofy and comedic moments, but they could all lock in when it was time to hit the climax. I don't hate Goma, I think he was a fun character, but all of Daima's big moments would have hit so much harder if they had a real antagonist to clash with. But maybe the real issue is Dragon Ball Z is just so good that my expectations are too high. Toriyama worked on Dragon Ball for such a long time. He grew as he went and became so unbelievably good at writing shonen. It's almost unreasonable of me to expect him to stay at that level years later. And considering his apparent newfound enthusiasm for Daima, it's a shame we might have missed out on Toriyama growing again as he developed more stories. On that somewhat somber note, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.